So James, welcome to my living room and our fireside chat. Thanks for returning to USD and joining me for this start off of the evening. This is one of my favorite events. Turns out there were a couple of South Shore Long Island guys and surfed. A lot of people don't even know you can surf in New York, but we're both New York surfers from a while back. Most of us know at USD know about your career in entrepreneurship and investing. It's summarized in the E program for people who are not familiar with James, but thinking back, this is kind of a loaded question, but I'm interested in if you can bring to mind two kinds of events. One is, wow, this is great, who's got it better than me? And the other is kind of the other extreme, like, oh no, now what do I do? And how would you respond to those two events?
Yeah, so I have a few different events like that on both sides of the coin. I would say that one moment where, I thought I was the cat's meow was certainly right in the beginning when we were getting ready to launch Suja. We kind of had a good run at kind of getting the brand off the ground, but it wasn't until we had our first meeting with Whole Foods where we knew we really had something special, where they were just enamored with us and wanted to know how quickly we could get on the shelves. And there were some signs before then that led us to believe that we had something special, but it was that meeting, knowing the weight and the clout that Whole Foods carried in that natural food space, and their aggression on getting us onto the shelves that really led us to believe that we had something special for sure.
That was a high moment.
Yeah, for sure.
And can I get you to share a low moment?
Yeah, back to the restaurant days, I kind of was riding a high with multitude of different venues open that were all doing really well, a lot of notoriety. Built this great company corporately, had 40 people working under one roof, and hundreds in the different locations. And we were getting ready to open our second biggest venue next to Stingery, which was called Universal. And the opening date was the Saturday after Bear Stearns collapsed. So we had already made a couple of fatal flaws through that process. That was kind of the kiss of death. And that was that moment where we just knew the world was going to kind of start to collapse around us as a business. And that kind of led into a place of kind of personal collapse as well. And it was just a real low point in my career and in my personal life, but certainly kind of found my way to fight through it.
Thanks for sharing that. And so I think the important thing about all those events, both positive and negative, is what we take away, what we learn. So looking back, what has stayed with you from both?
Yeah, I would say a lot more stayed with me from the second event. I think you certainly learn a lot more through adversity and hard times than you do through riding the highs. I learned a lot about myself personally. I kind of, really took note in a lot of the mistakes that I had made. I took a lot of my own inventory and did a lot of kind of, just real kind of looking at things from a perspective of what were the mistakes that I made that I could have helped to kind of change the outcome or put me in a better position to kind of fight through some of those adversities. And they were kind of on both sides of the fence, both personal and from a business perspective. And I value that 24-month period where I was kind of felt like I was fighting for my life, every day. And yeah, it was a good time. It was a real good time.
And anyone you're still standing after is a good time, I guess, right? I've heard it said that entrepreneurs are not risk takers. And so I'm interested when you say your personal lessons learned from those experiences. Would you say that you're risk averse or risk taker or neither?
So it's funny listening to Dean's stats when he was just rattling a couple of them off. So I definitely checked two of those boxes for sure. Number one, I was a terrible kid in high school. I lived on my own the end of my junior and all through my senior year, going to school in Manhattan. And yeah, I was definitely qualified for that one. And the other one was I started a business when I was here at USD. And, you know, those are two things that kind of, you know, I stuck out to me when he was talking about it. But yeah, I'm sorry. What I got sidetracked. What was the actual question?
The actual question had to
A
do
risk
with,
taker.
with risk taking.
Yeah, I mean, I am absolutely a risk taker. Have been, you know, forever. I think I personally believe entrepreneurs, if you're not a risk taker, you know, that's kind of what it's. I mean, you know, anybody can finish school, get a resume together, and take the kind of safe road and go get a job somewhere. I mean, anybody coming out of USD is qualified to get a job in some form or fashion. To me, the real risk is when you're willing to kind of put it all out there. And I don't think there's a greater risk in your business career than starting your own business.
An interviewer probably shouldn't ask a question without anticipating the answer, but I don't have an answer. I'm going to ask you how, now that you talked about your USD experience, one of our alums. Just quick sidebar, we call this the USD Legacy Entrepreneurship Conference because most of our speakers are alums of USD and now are entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs and investors themselves. Is there something about your USD experience that affected your career or that you've used in your career?
Yeah, everything. I mean, I really, my experience here was not only was I able to, you know, run and kind of build and sell a business while I was here through my junior and senior year, which was really my first own kind of endeavor. It was a partner and I. But the relationships that I made here have consistently kind of been revisited throughout my entire career in all the different businesses that I've been part of. So I would say, you know, and not only that, I mean, you know, I look back at the businesses that I have started, and I think there might be one or two employees that I currently have at one or two of the companies that I'm involved in right now. But I have really drawn a lot from the USD graduating classes that have come out, not only while they're in school and working as interns, but graduating. I mean, it's such a great talent pool that I've consistently kind of dipped back into it. For every single company that I've had at least a couple of employees that have come from USD.
Yeah, my own experience is I've taught at a number of universities before coming to USD, and I totally agree with that. We're very much people and relationship oriented, so that makes a lot of sense to me. You mentioned risk taking. We talked about that a little bit. Is there a difference in your role as an entrepreneur for so many years, but now as an investor for the last few years as well? Do you look at risk differently? Do you look at what you do differently between the two?
So I found, I mean, everybody has to kind of know who they are personally. And one thing that I found early is that I'm really not good at just writing a check and then just waiting for a quarterly report or a check to come back. It's not really what excites me. It's not about, you know, it's not all about the money. I mean, I hate when people say it's not about the money. It's definitely, that has a big part to do with it. But I really like being involved in the companies that I write a check into. And, you know, there's only really one company that I'm currently involved in that I'm not a co-founder of. So a lot of times I'm there from day one and writing check into something that I believe in with the people that I'm surrounded with. But even the company that I didn't found, and which is Original Grain, I'm still actively involved on a day-to-day basis, and that's where I like to play. I'm just not a passive guy.
Ryan and Andrew are both good guys. I've had them visit my classes before. So what do you bring besides underwriting to those new ventures?
I think my core competencies lie in kind of brand building and marketing, but certainly I've learned a lot over the years about raising capital and deal structure. It's really hard to start up and build a business. It's even harder to sell one. And you're not really you kind of, that's one thing that you just kind of learn trial by fire, right? And again, I sold Alcala Sportswear to an underclassman when I left here, so I guess that was the first business I sold, and I've sold a couple since then. But it's really that experience and knowing how to negotiate and really kind of keep your eye out for the potholes that can get you in trouble down the line. And some of those things I've learned through experience the hard way, and you just try not to make those same mistakes again.
So since you're a risk taker, I'm going to ask you to play word association with me.
Okay.
I'll explain some of these. If you don't know James's background, after he answers, I'll give him a chance to answer, and then I'll explain the background for it. So, herringbone.
My favorite. It's out of all the places that I built, and there was quite a few of them. It's by far, hands down, the favorite venue that I built and am most proud of, and I consider it a second home.
Herringbone may be a fabric to some of us, but it's also a restaurant in La Jolla.
Yeah.
And it's your favorite.
By far.
Yeah.
Okay. Wasn't the most successful, but it was by far my favorite.
Universal.
Disaster. Yeah, that was really tough. I mean, like I said, we made some mistakes that I take ownership of. Timing certainly didn't help. We lost a boatload of money, a lot of it my own, and it crippled the company. And luckily we were able to survive and hold on to really Stingery was the only thing left standing through that whole experience.
Is timing the takeaway from Universal?
If I'm honest with myself, I can say that we still would have had a tough time. It was a market that I thought we could kind of change the world with. It wasn't necessarily a market that I knew very well, as we were going into a kind of a different, just a different neighborhood, and which came with all sorts of different caveats to it. And I really think at the end of the day, at that point in my career, we had just so much wild success that I started to do deals just to do deals, not deals that made sense, and that was one of them.
We'll turn it better now. Suja.
Lightning in a bottle. It was, it was an experience that I actually thought would never be replicated, and I was wrong, because I think Kopari has a lot of similarities to it. But it was the name of my company has always been either Enlighten Hospitality Group. Now it's Enlighten Brand Ventures. And I would say Suja was the most enlightening experience of my career. Up until that point, it had really mainly been real estate and restaurants and nightclubs. That was my first kind of entry into consumer products, and I just immediately fell in love and kind of never looked back. So it was an experience beyond just like learning about what being able to just kind of have a specific product that you market and brand and move forward with, very unlike the restaurants. But it also just was lightning in a bottle. I mean, we hit the timing right, we hit the product right. We just, it's a business story that they'll be writing about for quite some time.
So for the few who might not know the name, tell us what Suja is.
So Suja, when we, naming things is one of the hardest things to do. If you've ever started a business, trying to figure out the name, you get so many different opinions from, your mother, your sister, your brother, employees, whoever. We were struggling with coming up with a name for Suja, and Eric, who was the original kind of juice king, as I called him, we were still buying our produce at that time from Whole Foods, like right off the shelves. And he had met this girl at the produce section, and her name was Suja. And he literally called me from the Whole Foods and said, I got it. It's Suja. I said, well, what does it mean? He said, she said it means long, beautiful life in ancient Sanskrit, which we've never proven, but we ran with it. And that was it. We named it right there on the spot.
I'm not going to ask you how much you paid for her name.
It was just juice.
Coca-Cola.
Bureaucratic, challenging. They're like a government, and I'm the opposite of a government. So, it's been 3 years of kind of working our way into that system and learning how to kind of deal with kind of everything that goes against my grain of how I work. But great partner, and obviously that was a big moment in our career 3 years ago when they became partners with us.
So the background is that they're partial.
Yeah, so they own 30%. Goldman Sachs owns 19%, and we still held on to the other 51%.
Nice. And two of the companies that you're involved with now, maybe you could spend a couple of minutes just talking with us about them. Original Grain.
Yeah, Original Grain is a great brand that was founded by two brothers. A very kind of millennial brand. It's watches that have a wood and steel component to them with a story behind them. It's been really fun working with those guys. When they launched on Kickstarter, they were the #2 most successful campaign in fashion on Kickstarter. I think they did about a little under $500,000 in that first year that they were in existence. And then we came on board as they were kind of, just running into the normal kind of startup potholes. They needed some capital and some know-how. And last year we did about 16 million, and we're on our way to one-up in that this year. So it's been a really fun experience.
By millennial watches, I think James means big.
Yeah, not necessarily,
Maybe not necessarily.
but a couple that are.
And Kopari.
Kopari is kind of my focus these days. It's been a great experience for a multitude of different reasons. I think the biggest one is two of my best friends that I went to school here from '92 to '96, and we graduated together. Our husband-wife, Bryce and Gigi Goldman, they're two of my other co-founders in the business, and we've been friends since orientation week. Our kids go to school together, and we're family. And when we started this thing, that was really an appealing part of it. And again, timing and being in the right place at the right time is always good. We launched that company about 3 years ago. And it just took off right out of the gates, and you kind of know as things are really, really taking off that, at least I'd seen it before with Suja, and there's so many parallels that I see there. But yeah, now we're in Sephora, Ulta, Nordstrom's, and we've got investors like LVMH and Unilever in the deal. And yeah, it's been really, really fun. It's a great business. I like it better than Suja. The margins are like, double what they are at Suja. There's zero CapEx, whereas Suja, we've spent, $40 million on plants. And I think at Kopari, we've just bought some molds. So it's a much different business, and it's sexy, it's fun, it's exciting. And yeah, we're really excited about where we're going to be able to take it.
Maybe fun is what these have in common, but I'm looking back across restaurants, juice, watches, beauty products, and looking for what's in common. Maybe it is fun. I don't know. What ties them together in your experience?
Business. I'm kind of agnostic to the product itself. I just love that kind of energy that comes along with starting something from scratch. So no matter what it is, that's what kind of excites me. And I'm sure anybody that's in the audience knows if they've started something, raising capital is kind of the biggest pain in the neck there is. I really enjoy it. Obviously, I've had some success that makes it a little bit easier, but just the little things of getting out there and kind of putting yourself, in front of people and having them make a bet on you. Really kind of excites me. And so I don't really get too bogged down with the product itself. I will say that I do enjoy the health and wellness kind of place that I've moved into. It's funny, I've joked before. I went from like wrecking people's lives and selling them bottle service at nightclubs to like selling them healthy pressed juice and saving them. So it's kind of come full circle.
That's probably a good turn.
Yeah,
Good change of direction.
feels better. I can sleep easier at night.
Speaking of sleeping easier, you have a history of community involvement and philanthropy. We've got a couple of minutes left, but you're involved with Catholic Charities, Boys and Girls Clubs. You were
Actually, Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Yeah.
Big Brothers and Sisters. Okay.
Yeah.
You were part of the recovery from Hurricane Sandy back in New York.
Yeah, that was 6 years ago.
Rockaway
A couple
Reach.
of days here.
So what drives your involvement and your philanthropy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the way that I was brought up. You know, I'm an Irish Catholic kid from a lower middle class family. One of my earliest memories that I have was my parents took my sister at the time and a couple of other family friends down to Haiti. You know, my uncle, who was a doctor at the time, you know, brought a bunch of materials and medical stuff with him, and you know, he wound up treating kids the whole time we were down there, and I specifically remember that. I also remember leaving with whatever we had on our backs. We left all of our clothes there, and it always kind of stuck with me. I remember kind of the way that I felt then, and I was probably 5 or 6 years old. But kind of fast forward into my life and kind of having some success, I really was somebody who was happy to write a check for the right cause that I felt like there was a return on investment coming from. But it wasn't until 2003 where I was just going through, I still was struggling with September 11th and kind of some of the loss that I had there, and just had this kind of yearning to do more. Kind of the universe was talking to me in multiple different ways, and it led me to Big Brothers, Big Sisters. And I joined on to become a big brother. And that kind of changed my life as the way I looked at philanthropy. I got so much out of what I was able to give to that little boy that I was a big brother to. And it really did kind of change the trajectory of the way that I looked at, you know, my time and how I wanted to donate that. You know, I then went on to be a board member at Big Brothers Big Sisters. But I would say the highlight of my philanthropic career has certainly been, well, twofold. Number one, I'm still going on 11 years on the board of Catholic Charities, and it's something that I take great pride in. We do a lot with a little and touch so many lives here in the county, and it's really important work. And because of that, it enabled me to do what I was able to do when my hometown got devastated after Hurricane Sandy. And it just, you know, I certainly wasn't a disaster relief specialist, but I was able to raise, you know, about $2 million pretty quickly, and kind of get back there and just roll my sleeves up and utilize Catholic Charities as a conduit of where people were putting the money through and how I was getting it to people, and just the things that we did. And obviously we were recognized by 60 Minutes. They came down and interviewed me, and I was on that first 60 Minutes after the storm. And you know, it led me to be the commencement address speaker that following May here at USD, and other accolades that I got, which were all great. But what was really the most special thing to me, I mean, we got, I think, 202 families into their homes by Christmas of that year. And yeah, I mean, I can't walk down the beaches of Rockaway, which we live in, over the summer. I cannot go for a walk on the beach without somebody coming up and saying thank you for the washing machine, or thank you for, you know, I mean, we touched so many more people than those 200 families, but you know, it still gives me such a joy to know that we were able to make such an impact.
I like to think there's consistency between that attitude, that approach to philanthropy and involvement, as well as financial support, and the way that USD presents itself and finds a place in the world. Changemaker and social involvement of our students is very important, a basic core value of the university.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're actually a minute or two overtime. The evening is structured so that there are intervals of time when you can spend one-on-one conversations with each other, with our speakers, and we're about to go into one of those now. We'll start again in 15 minutes, a little under 15 minutes now, at 7, with the 2 concurrent panels. So this will change to a panel structure. The rooms off to my right will also be set up for a panel discussion. The folks I introduced you to earlier to start the evening off will divide up. Some will go over there, some will stay here, and we'll have the 2 concurrent panels that are listed in your program. So there's a lot more evening to go, a lot more excitement ahead. I hope you'll stick with us as long as you can. And please thank me, or no, don't thank me. Yeah, you can thank me some other time, but join me in thanking James for spending this time with us. Thank you.
Bye.